Nick Devine.
And what do you
I'm
do?
a seventh grade social studies teacher,
Yes.
humanities teacher.
Yeah, humanities this year. So we're still in the middle of a pandemic. It's actually still December 2020, so we are apart. But I wanted to, I just wanted to talk to you about books, and I wanted you to share kind of what you love or hate about reading, or what books you love or hate. And I think our teenagers that we know would be interested in hearing more about you. So
Awesome, yeah. Knowledge is power. Let's do this thing.
Okay, so maybe tell your life story from birth to now, and maybe highlight some books that have impacted you in some way.
Yeah, for sure. So I grew up like elementary school age. I have a twin brother. And my brother and I, growing up in northern Indiana, we lived in like a really rough part of town. Like it wasn't really like, I don't know, you couldn't like hop on your bike and go like bike around town. Like it wasn't like that wasn't a thing.
Okay.
And so like my life was basically like playing basketball and watching Space Jam, building Legos, and like reading books. Like that was basically it.
Okay.
And like my parents growing up used to read, like I was like every night they would read to us kind of thing. So like my dad would read to us when we were like really, really little, like, crawl up and sit next to him on the couch and he'd read us like Chronicles of Narnia.
Oh, wow.
And like Harry Potter and good stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then eventually, as we started getting older, like that's kind of how we started like branching out into reading. Is like nighttime story time would be like he's gonna read a chapter and then we're gonna read a page, and then my brother's gonna read a page, and so it'd be like they like help us sound out words and stuff like that. So that was really cool. And then when we like moved a lot, like we moved out here late elementary school, early middle school, moved out to Colorado, and like moving is hard, and you like don't have a whole lot of friends really fast, and we kind of like lived out in the country. So again, not really like a let's hop on my bike and bike to a friend's house kind of deal.
Yeah.
So a lot of like just time at home, where again like lots of reading, lots of like doing stuff like that. So yeah, I spent a lot of time reading as a kid. We like used to growing up from like basically since we started reading like Dr. Seuss books. That was like the staple, any like birthday or Christmas, like holidays that involved like gifts.
Yeah.
That was like, we were given a book and like, I don't know, like a Lego set or something like that. But it was like, hey, here's your book. This is what you're doing. And that was like, yeah. So you get a book on like your birthday, which my birthday is in October. So then I'd have like 2 months to read the book before I got a new book in December for Christmas. And then I'd like, I don't know, get a book for like, make up something in the spring, Easter or something like that. I don't know. So yeah, lots of reading. My mom reads, like she's an avid reader. Like I think that woman has probably read every book that exists. Like I don't know if that's possible, but like she probably has a decent go of it at least, because she reads for like hours on every day kind of deal. So yeah, just kind of grew up around that, and we were like our family was always like a really big like education is power, knowledge is power, and like read some books. And so it instilled in me like at a young age, like not only the importance of reading, but also like reading for a purpose, like read to like learn some things. Like, I don't know, if you're going to read a thing, like there's books that you enjoy, but like, what are you taking out of it too?
Yeah.
So like even in like a fantasy book or, a book that's just like telling a story, like there's lessons to be taken out of that. So like absorbing those kind of lessons as like a form of like your own education. Like that was like preached at me from like basically since I was like 5. It was basically like, what have you been reading? What have you been learning from it kind of deal? Like, yeah. So, yeah, high school, same thing. College, same thing. Like college, I got into more of like, I don't know. I worked like 65 hours a week in college. So it wasn't as much fun reading as much as it was like, these are the books that I have to read for school. Yeah. So like, what cool stuff can I take out of it, I guess?
Where did you go to college at?
CSU.
Yeah. Oh, me too.
Yeah.
Did you always know you were going to go to college?
Yeah, that wasn't really ever an option. I mean, I guess it was an option, but it was kind of like you're going to college. Like my mom's side of the family, my dad on his side of the family was the first one to go to college.
Okay.
So it was kind of like a, hey, now that I've done this thing, and he actually graduated college. He finished college when we were in elementary school.
Okay.
Because it took him like 20 years to get a bachelor's degree.
That's great, though, that he stuck with it and did it.
Yeah.
That's a good role model.
Yeah, so it was like that perseverance, you know. He went to like 12 different schools, took like 20 years, like took little breaks in between and stuff like that, but stuck with it. My mom went to Purdue University, which is like where my mom's whole side of the family went. So it was never really like an option. It was kind of like a, hey, if you choose to do something after college that didn't require a degree, cool, but like don't let the lack of a piece of paper hold you back from like an opportunity in life. So it's kind of like college was always like, it was a thing that was like, hey, you should go do this, but it was also like a, hey, you should go do this merely to like not limit your options, right? Like keep your options open, because a bachelor's degree can open up a lot of doors. A master's can open up more doors,
right? Regardless
of where you go. So
yeah. What did you study in college?
So I went in as a biology student. And I really wanted to be a marine biologist because, like, I love manatees. And I was, like, convinced, like, I was going to be the dude to save the manatees. Like, I knew from, like, again, like, elementary school, I was like, I'm going to be the guy. Like, manatees are endangered, and I'm going to be, like, the reason that they're not endangered anymore. Like, I'm going to do it. And then I got into college, and I had a biology professor. It was, like, my second. I passed out of, like, the first freshman level biology, whatever. So it was like the second level biology.
Yeah.
I had a professor who was just so into photosynthesis that he like talked about photosynthesis in plants for like a month and a half straight, which is about 5 weeks too much photosynthesis in plants for me. So I like, between that and like, I've always been competent at math, but never really like loved math.
Yeah.
So then when they started being like, hey, if you're going to do a biology degree, you have to get like calculus and all of that kind of stuff. And I'm like, I don't know. Like that doesn't sound like my jam, and I'm not great at it. And like OChem sounded like it sucked.
Yeah. That was one of the hardest classes too.
Yeah. Yeah. So I bailed out of that, and I had a really cool history class where the professor would start every class with like, today's story is about, and like that's how she would teach history, is like it was through the idea of stories. And like history is stories, and you learn concepts through stories. Like when she would teach these, it's like you're not required, it doesn't matter when it's taking place, who it's taking place with, what's happening in the story. Which I thought was really interesting, and so that kind of inspired me to like go that route. I've always been a history nerd anyways.
Okay.
So like I went that route because I just like story time, and I'm like, I could do that. Like I could tell stories about things. Like heck yeah. So, and it came way easier to me. Like history comes way easier to me than like math and science. Like that was always a really big struggle for me. It was just something I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So so I ended up majoring in history, and then like sophomore year was like, wait, what do you do with a history degree? Like, what am I gonna do with that? Like work at a museum? Like I don't know. And I was like, oh, I guess I could teach kids. Like I was coaching already. So I was like, I guess I could teach, like, that'd be cool. And then liked it.
Yeah.
And here I am.
Did you teach right out of college, or did you go do other stuff first?
So I graduated college, and then like an idiot decided I'm not going to apply for teaching jobs. I graduated in December and like jetted off to Europe and rode my bike across Europe, and was basically homeless in Europe for like 3 months. Like I was traveling Europe, but I was really just homeless in Europe for 3 months. Like I was just like sleeping on benches and like, I don't know.
That sounds like a great adventure. Plus I would think that getting a job mid-year would be hard.
Right. And so like I could have done like a long-term sub or something like that, but I just wasn't feeling it. And so I just like left and did that, and then came back. And I didn't actually apply for teaching jobs. Like I didn't really know the process. I was never really told like, this is when you do this thing, you know?
Yeah.
Since I like graduated in December. So I like didn't apply to teaching jobs until like June or July, which is like really late.
Yeah.
So I didn't get anything. So I ended up working, like I've worked landscaping forever, doing like trail construction and stuff. So I worked landscaping for like about a year, like full time.
Okay.
Until I happened into a long-term sub job as a PE and health teacher. So I taught high school health and PE and like weights classes for a semester, basically.
I didn't know that. Did you like it?
Yeah. I loved it. Like, you can show up in like basketball shorts and a t-shirt. Like, that's your teaching attire on a daily basis. And like 2.5 hours of my day was like playing basketball.
Yeah.
And like another 2 hours was like lifting, and then going teaching kids like don't do drugs and like don't do, yeah, I loved it. I thought it was awesome. I loved being a health teacher. I don't think I could do it full time, but I loved it for like the short bit of time that I had. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So I want to go backwards to middle school years. Do you remember anything that you liked to read when you were, 6th, 7th, 8th, maybe 9th grade?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we got 2 kittens. We found 2 kittens. They were like barn cats that fell. I worked at a feedlot in middle school, and there were 2 kittens that like fell through a wall. So we adopted these kittens, and they like lived in my room when I was like in 6th and 7th grade. They just lived in my room, particularly during night. And because they're kittens, they're like up during the night all the time.
Yeah.
So I like never slept really. So all I did was read. Like, it would just be like me reading Harry Potter. Like, I think I read the Harry Potter series probably 2 or 3 times in like middle school.
Yeah.
But I also, like, being a history nerd at a young age, I also read like Stephen Ambrose, who wrote Band of Brothers. Have you seen the show Band of Brothers?
Yes, not in a long time. Wait, is it a show? It's a movie, yeah?
Yeah, it's like a mini series. So it's like there's like 8 episodes or something like that. Yes. But each one's like an hour and 20 minutes long or something like that. But it was a book first. Okay. So like I read that. I read like Black Hawk Down. I read some other like history type books.
Okay.
I read like all the Hunger Games. Yeah, I don't know. I would just like I would read a book, and then my mom would like I'd finish it and be like, "Hey, I finished this book." My mom would just like find something for me.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you're reading this now. So I read like I don't know. I read like a lot of fantasy books too. Like I want to say the name R.A. Salvatore. I don't know if you ever heard of him. He used to write some fantasy books, I feel. And
I'm not
pumped out a bunch of them. And I feel like I read like that name sticks in my mind that I read a bunch of his books.
Okay.
Couldn't tell you a title though, because again, they're just kind of handed to me. So
anything that you didn't like maybe for class or it was a birthday gift and you're like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah. Some of like the biography stuff, like I never really got into like reading biographies of people. Like some of them, it depends on the person. Like if you're gonna read a biography of like I don't know, like Michael Jordan, like cool stuff. But if you're gonna read a biography about like I don't know, Thomas Jefferson, you're gonna get like some interesting stuff. But really, it's just like this is a dude's life. Like,
yeah, that's interesting that you don't like those because I would think that in loving history, you would like to know about people more. And
I like to know about people, but I more like to know about like the setting that they're coming from, right? Because a person is just a person, and they just happen to be doing things, okay, that contribute to like the world around them. So I like learning more about like the world around them versus like the individual specific person.
That is really interesting.
Yeah. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I just never really got into that. I also like Tale of Two Cities. I read.
Yeah.
Hated it.
Yeah, I didn't like that one either. I think it was too hard for me when I was reading it. I think it was over my head.
Yeah. I think I can only think of one book that I like had to read for school that I actually really enjoyed. Everything else that I was like forced to read for school, it like didn't really do it for me. It was kind of like I had to find my own things that I enjoyed reading. And I've gone back now and read some books that I was forced to read in school. And I'm like, that's a better book now that I don't have to like spend 6 months analyzing every word in this book.
Every sentence, yeah. So what was the one book that you loved?
What's that?
What was the book that you loved?
The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho.
Yeah. Why do you like that?
Yeah, that's like one of my all-time favorite books. And I think I read that as like a freshman maybe. And I love that book. I think I've probably read that like 6 or 7 times in my life. That's Lord awesome. Of the Rings is another one that I read as like a middle school kid. The Hobbit.
Yeah.
I probably read The Hobbit like 2 or 3 times when I was in middle school.
Leffler said he loved the Lord of the Rings too.
Oh yeah.
Or not Lord of the Rings. Oh my God. Lord of the Flies.
Lord of the Flies is a good one. I read that one too. That one was a good book too. That was one that I read because other kids were having to read it for school.
Yeah.
And I liked it and they hated it because they had to read it for school. Yeah. And I was just reading it on my own time.
Yeah.
For fun. So
that's a good point. So if if you were at home, you're at the school right now, I would have you show me your bookcase. What are you reading right now? What do you love? What books do you adore? Or
So I recently read probably the most recent book that I finished. I read 1984 somewhat recently.
Yeah. Is that because you guys were teaching dystopian, or you just wanted to, or why?
I just wanted to. I read it last spring. It just felt like a very timely book.
Yeah, no kidding. I think that's why I would not want to read it.
Yeah, it felt a little timely for me. So I read that last spring. I read The Rent Collector.
I don't know that one.
Which it's about like a family living in like the trash dumps of Phnom Penh, Cambodia. That I really liked because I've like been to Cambodia. So like they were talking about all these places. I was like, oh my God, I've been there. Like, that's crazy. I'm currently reading The Book Thief because somehow that's like slipped through the cracks for me. And Mike Leffler found out that I hadn't read The Book Thief. And so he I was over at his house one time and he just like, hey, you're taking this. So I'm currently reading that. I'm about halfway through that.
Okay.
I recently read Meditations by Marcus Aurelius.
Oh, I recognize the name, but
yeah,
not.
Meditations is like his journal. So it's basically when he was like out fighting wars in the Roman Empire. I keep forgetting this is like for kids. So like Marcus Aurelius was a Roman general, and he was when he was out fighting wars, he was just like making like basically his journal of like things he was observing in the world and how he understood stuff going on around him. He like wrote a journal and then they turned it into Meditations.
Oh, that sounds really interesting.
Yeah, so I was reading that.
Read?
What's that?
Is it hard to read?
Yeah. Okay. It's dense. Like it's definitely a thing. Like you like sit down at night and you're going to read like 15, 20 minutes of it. It's not like I'm going to curl up on a Saturday and knock out 4 hours of this book. Like that's not Meditations. I recently read Grapes of Wrath. I read Grapes of Wrath last spring as well. That's like my mom's all-time favorite book and I hadn't read it. So she gave that to me. So,
it's been a long time since I've read that one, and I don't remember if I really loved it. I should probably revisit that.
It's slow, especially to start, and it's just like really like it's a lot. Like I don't know, it's a large book.
Yeah, it is. So
what are you reading?
I have like major ADD when it comes to books, especially right now. So I'm in the middle of Scythe. I'm reading I wish I had it. It's called The Cooking Gene, I think, by Michael Twitty. You might actually be really interested in it because it's talking about the history of like soul food and how when Africans were brought over as slaves and they're cooking for all of these huge plantations, how they brought their culture with them and it's really truly theirs. And Michael Twitty is a great writer. He's like a historical food writer, which I didn't even know was a job, but it sounds really interesting. And so he dives into his own personal history, but the history of slaves, the history of different dishes that you have maybe heard of, like collard greens or all sorts of things. And so that's been really fascinating to read.
That's super cool.
And then I read lots of mysteries, lots of like little cozy, super easy mysteries. I can't even think of one. And then this is super dorky. I like to read cookbooks, like people read books. And so I bought, I can't remember what it's called. It's like a holiday cookbook that someone has made up, and it's like if Edgar Allan Poe was having a Halloween dinner, what would he make? If the Little Women were having Christmas, what would they make?
I bet that's really cool, actually.
Do you know who I think would love it? Is Josh George. And I think he would totally dig it because he loves cooking. He's into like the cooking thing too. He is, yeah.
Yeah, you'll have to loan that to him.
Yeah, I will. I'll have to. But I just got it. I'm really excited. And then
that's awesome.
I bought the
soul food one sounds cool too. If you finish that and you need someone to pawn it off on, let me know.
I will. I'll send it your way because I don't typically keep a lot of books because it would be too many. So yeah, I'll send it your way. But
yeah, I don't either. I'm very much so like a book rental.
Yeah,
type
like
people.
get it
Like,
and pass it on. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking when I was bringing in like the sample size of my books, I was like, I feel like I have more books than this. Like, what's happening? And then I was like texting friends last night, like, hey, like, have you seen this book? They're like, yeah, dude, like that was part of the stack you gave me. I was like, oh, like, okay. So yeah, I'm in the exact same vein. I don't ever hold on to things usually.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you, and it could be now or when you were a kid, how do you get your books? Do you buy them? Or are you going to the library, Kindle?
I used to go to the library actually a lot as a kid. Michigan City, where I lived in Indiana, had like a really sweet library. And that was like how my mom, like, we got to kill time. Like, or, you know, my mom just like, we're going to go to the library and like go forth and prosper, find a book, find a beanbag, like chill and read. So I used to go to the library like all the time.
Yeah.
Now I typically rely on like what we just did, like, hey, I'm reading this cool thing, you should check it out.
Yes.
I typically rely on that, or like still for like Christmas, like my mom will give me a book or something like that. But I usually rely on like friends just kind of giving me things, like giving me books that they really liked, and then I'll read it.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of like recommendations, and then I'll pass that along and stuff like that. But most of the books I've read recently have just been like gifted to me.
Yeah.
Typically.
I love that. Because then that's how you make friendships and connections, and you have more things to talk about.
Yeah, I like the talking about things piece too, because then it's just like you're having like lunch and randomly it's just like, oh hey, you like all four of us have read this one book. Like let's talk about that.
Yeah,
like I think it's super cool. It's a good like human connection piece.
Yeah, it really is. So show me what you brought. What did you bring?
Oh, yeah,
what did you haul?
So I brought a Harry Potter book, which I had to choose wisely because I have two bunnies and they kind of get the run of my house all the time. And my bunnies are currently working their way through the fourth Harry Potter book. So they like eating things. So they're currently eating books. So like this one has, terrible. I brought the fifth Harry Potter book, which is like obviously the worst of the seven.
Why? So I sort of like this one. Why do you not like it?
Oh, he's just so angsty. He's like really like, he's really, really teenagery. And I think part of it is like I read these when I was a teenager, so I didn't want to deal with additional teenagery things. Okay. And then now as a teacher, I'm like, I also don't need to deal with additional teenagery things.
That's so funny.
Like, yeah, like the internal angst was just I wasn't vibing with it. Like, I don't know. But yeah, this is the one that Fifi obviously didn't like either as much.
Apparently.
This is what she's probably eaten the least of. So I brought that. I read a lot. I probably read most every book from Dan Brown. Have you read Dan Brown?
Oh yeah. Yes, of course.
I love Dan Brown.
Read that one. I didn't like that one as much as the some of his first ones.
Yeah, Angels and Demons was my favorite. Yeah.
It was so captivating.
Yeah, so good. God, is that a good book? Da Vinci Code, like a close following.
Yeah.
Lost Symbol was all right. Like it was
I don't think I've read that one.
I think I might have that one. I'll look for it and let you know. I might have it.
Okay. So. I definitely remember Angels and Demons though. And you're right. I liked that one even more than the Da Vinci Code. I don't know if that's how he wrote them.
I think Da Vinci Code maybe came first, but I'm not totally sure.
Aren't there? Yeah. Okay. It's been a long while. I should reread that one.
Yeah. I use Dan Brown as like my go-to, like I'm flying somewhere book.
Yes.
Like, if I'm on a plane, like I'm going to knock out half of a Dan Brown book.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah. I brought my special version of The Hobbit. It's like gold leaf and everything.
Ooh.
Yeah. Leather bound gold leaf. I got it for I got it for a birthday or something at some point. This one I don't let Fifi eat at all.
Yeah, I would hope not. Jeez.
No.
I'm trying. I have a really cool Hobbit book too, but I don't know where it is. Mine's like a leather bound like map and history and world building of all of the worlds.
What?
I'll find that. It might be in the library at school, actually.
That's so cool. I have a friend who just walked into a used bookstore.
Yeah.
And in just like a crate of random like books that had just come in that they hadn't like put out on shelves, he was just digging through his crate and he found a first edition Silmarillion. Which is like a priceless book.
Yeah, first edition.
And it was like I think it'd been because the bin I think was just like $10. Like it was anything in here is $10. And so my friend obviously bought it like straight away, and like brought it up to the thing, and the guy was like trying to like essentially be like, no, you can't buy this, and he's just like, yeah, like it's for sale, like yes I can, like yeah. Amazing find. Yeah.
Where was that? In Colorado?
Yeah, it was actually at Bazaar in Fort Collins. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, super cool. They've got some really cool stuff there.
Yeah, they do. I haven't been there in a while.
I know, they moved and now it's like not as great of a place. Like the new location isn't as cool.
Oh, okay. I didn't even know they moved, so that's how long it's been.
It used to be over like where the downtown artery is.
Yep.
And that's when it was it was a good place then.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got Desert Solitaire by Edward Abbey.
I do not know this book.
Edward Abbey was he lived in Arches National Park. He was like the park warden back in like the late 1950s, early 1960s maybe.
Okay.
And so Edward Abbey is like a big conservationist writer. So he talks about like environmental conservation. He like this Desert Solitaire is basically like his journal when he was a park warden person there. And that's back when like there weren't roads in Arches National Park. Like, it was just like the land was preserved, but and some people came there, but there wasn't a road that went into it.
Oh, how interesting.
So that's really interesting. It's just talking about like how there's like no water in the desert, and like I don't know, it's a lot of like desert meditations and contemplations, which is an interesting like for a dude who's just stranded in a desert for 2 years and just like these are his thoughts. Like it's kind of interesting. Howard Zinn, A People's History of the United States. You got to, because obviously history nerd. So I've got like history nerd stuff like America's National Park System and A People's History of the United States. This, if you ever, strongly recommend, probably middle school kids. It's a little bit beyond where you're at the moment. But like by the time you get to like high school or college, like if you ever, this is a lot and it took me a long time to get through. But I read this when I was coaching track. And so every time we have 6 hours to drive to a track meet, I would start reading this book. And it's like a really interesting look at U.S. history from like poor people's perspectives, basically.
That would be really good to read, probably.
Yeah.
Very valuable for lots of
if you want. If you would like to learn, but it's not a thing like it'll take you a year to get through because you'll read some of it and then you'll get really depressed and then you'll like put it down for a little while.
Okay.
And then pick it back up like a month later.
Okay.
Like forewarning, but. National parks are really cool though too. So I got books on that.
Have you read the series? Now I can't remember. Laura Saunders recommended it to me, and she works in the national parks. It's a fictional like mystery series. She works in the national parks. Every book.
Nevada Bar.
Yes. Have you read those? Did we already talk about this?
No, but my mom has read every single one of them, and she's been like trying to get me on Nevada Bar for like. At least a decade. Like that was like when I was in high school, my mom was just killing the Nevada Bar books.
I loved it. Yeah, Laura told me about it and I've read quite a bit of them, and it's so interesting to hear about the different national parks. Like there are some national parks that I didn't even know. So that was really interesting. The one that's the Rocky Mountain National Park was depressing though. So then I had to take a break.
Yeah. It's a little too close for home.
Like, darn it, come on. So, but yeah, if you love reading about national parks and you're into a mystery, I mean, it would be so fast for you.
Yeah, I need to pick it up. Like my mom has all of them, and I'm going up to see her next week, so I'll probably come home with a Nevada Bar book because I've kept hearing that name. Like that name's come up for whatever reason, like 4 times in the last like month or two. So I feel like I'm obligated now. Yeah,
well, and what's so great is that she actually was a park ranger. And then she started writing. So I think that's fascinating.
Yeah, like a wealth of knowledge there, which is kind of cool. And I dig national parks. Like the outdoors and nature is awesome. So why not combine 2 cool things, Reading nerds and nature. Yeah, I'm about that action. Oh my gosh, this is the Tao Te Ching. I was looking for this. I've been reading some philosophy type stuff. Like I said, meditations. I've got a really good friend of mine from college is like, doing like a deep dive into philosophy. So he just kind of like every time I see him, he gives me like a new philosophy book.
Yeah.
That I like try and read before the next time I see him. So like Tao Te Ching, which is like the study of Chinese Taoism.
Yeah.
Was interesting. Meditations was one of those examples. I got Bhagavad Gita, which is like the holy book of Hinduism. I got that from him last time I saw him. So like I've got that as kind of a weird little section of my library, which I dig. Like, I don't know, I'm into philosophies and stuff like that.
Well, and you're telling me about that, but it makes sense because I'm sure you're learning about the culture of those different areas and its world. And I know you love to travel the world. So it makes sense.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And I I used things from Tao Te Ching. I was reading it last year when I was teaching about ancient China. So I was like, I'd like read a thing and then like on a Saturday and then be like, oh, I can make a lesson out of that and like add it to a lesson for Monday, you know? So like that was kind of cool. And just kind of like exploring like Marcus Aurelius being a Roman general. Like I could work in stuff like that when we're learning about ancient Rome. So yeah, like you said, like kind of, I don't know, relatively historically timely for that.
Yeah. That's awesome. But,
yeah. 1984.
1984.
Yep. So yeah, I think that's the sampling I have.
That's a pretty
Book of Happiness from Dalai Lama. The Big Book of Happiness from the Dalai Lama.
Oh, you I feel like my tastes are much trashier than yours after hearing all of these cool existential books that you're reading.
I mean, I can get down with like, I like just like fantasy stories that just kind of tell a story, but really when I'm reading, like I truly go into it with the idea of like, I want to take something out of that book. Okay. Like I want to feel like I'm like a more educated person having read that book, even if it's like a fantasy book. Like you can learn crazy amount of things from Harry Potter.
Yeah.
But like, so I don't really, and like, I don't know, like that's why I'm into like the Dan Brown mysteries, because I can like learn cool things about like the Vatican.
Yeah.
You know?
That's so interesting. And that's kind of what I love about reading. So when you're reading, you want to be a better person, to grow, to educate yourself. When I read, I primarily read, I do that too. I think that's why I love cookbooks and I like, like the cooking gene. I'm very interested in that part of history, but mostly I read to escape. Like I don't want to be me with all of the things I have to do or live in this world where it's stressful. I want to go pretend to be a detective whose cat can solve mysteries.
I totally get that. And I was like, I would say in high school, I was definitely more like that.
Yeah.
Like high school, going through some stuff in life, like I was definitely more like read to escape. And now it's more like the world is out there and it's crazy. And so I like reading things that help me better understand stuff that's out there and it's crazy. Like 1984.
Yeah.
Like, holy cow, the world is nuts. Let's read 1984 because he's writing about how the world is nuts. Like that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's kind of cool because like reading means so many different things to so many different people.
I know.
Like, yeah, it's just like knowledge is power, but in like however you're accessing that knowledge.
Yeah, I love that. God, we're good.
God, we're so good. We should teach reading.
We should teach.
Yo, we should probably teach him stuff, man. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Anything else that you want to share with me or us about your love for reading?
I guess like I don't know, like my big takeaway for reading, like reading is cool, and reading is like think of all the cool people that people follow in history. Like I don't know, everyone thinks about like historical heroes, like people have heroes in life and like role models that they look up to in life. Like all of those people, from like a kid perspective, all of those people that you're looking up to, like they were avid readers, like to a T. 100% of them were avid readers. Like every single person that has like had massive achievements and stuff in life, probably at some point in time was inspired by reading, which is like a really powerful thing because like reading is power. And there's a reason, like, I mean, if you've had me as a student, if you've had me as your teacher, like that's like, I always harp on kids in class, but like reading is the first thing that people take away when they're trying to like control a group of people is like their access to books. That's why book burnings are a thing.
Yeah.
Is because like reading is powerful. And so like reading is a cool thing. And book burnings, like when they do book burnings, it's not like they're burning specific books. They're burning all books that aren't the ones that they target. So it's like you can learn something from like every single thing that you want to read. Like you can take stuff out of it, which is kind of a cool thing. Like it's a really powerful thing to be able to like educate your own self.
Yeah.
Malcolm X was in prison and like dropped out of high school, went to prison, and like was basically just like a radical terrorist up until he went to prison and then started reading stuff. And then he was like this powerful social change leader.
Yeah.
Just because you like read some books.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, reading's a cool thing. Be into it.
Be into it. I like it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Nick, for doing this with me.
Of course, it was so fun.
It was fun. Okay. Well, have a great day and happy reading.